The 1982 Washington Quarter Dollar with AP mint mark. At first glance this one looks rough. It's dirty. The surface is dull and dark. Years of circulation have left it with grime in the lettering and small scratches across the fields. Many people would toss a coin like this into a change jar without a second thought. But 1982 is not just any year for Washington quarters. This coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which added the P mint mark to quarters starting in 1980. By 1982 the mint was producing large numbers of coins for circulation, but something unusual was happening behind the scenes. In 1982 and 1983 the U.S. Mint did not release official mint sets for collectors. That decision had a major effect. Normally, collectors could buy sealed sets of fresh, uncirculated coins directly from the mint. Without those sets, far fewer high-quality coins were saved right away. Most 1982 P quarters went straight into circulation. That means even today, truly sharp, high-grade examples are much harder to find than many people expect. On the front of the coin is the familiar portrait of George Washington, facing left. The word Liberty arches above his head. In God We Trust appears to the left, and the date 1982 sits below. The small P mint mark is visible to the right of Washington's ponytail. On a dirty, heavily circulated example, Washington's hair may look flat. The cheek and jawline may be smooth from wear. The fields might appear cloudy or stained. But even in this condition, the design remains clear enough to study. The reverse features the traditional eagle design used before the state quarter program began. The eagle holds arrows in its claws with olive branches below. United States of America curves along the top, and quarter dollar rests at the bottom. In worn condition, the eagle's chest feathers often blend together, and fine wing details fade. So how could a dirty 1982 P quarter ever be worth serious money? Here's where the story becomes exciting. Because so few pristine examples were saved, the finest known survivors and top mint state grades have brought astonishing prices at auction. While most circulated coins are worth only face value, a nearly flawless, professionally graded example with exceptional eye appeal has sold for amounts approaching six figures. In fact, some elite specimens have traded in the range of roughly $80,000 to well over $130,000 depending on grade, surface quality, and demand at the time of sale. These prices reflect extreme condition rarity, not age, not silver content, but survival in nearly perfect shape. It's important to understand something very clearly. A dirty, heavily worn example like the one described here would normally still be worth 25 cents unless it has a rare error. However, errors do exist. Collectors search for doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other production mistakes from the early 1980s. If a genuine and dramatic mint error is found on a 1982 P quarter, even in circulated condition, the value can rise sharply. The key is that the error must have occurred during minting, not after years of damage. Another factor is high-end grading. Even tiny differences in surface preservation can mean the difference between a common coin and a condition rarity worth thousands. Coins from 1982 are known for weak strikes and heavy bag marks. Finding one with razor-sharp detail and smooth, untouched surfaces is extremely difficult. That is why the top certified examples command such powerful prices. Still, there is something meaningful about a dirty coin. A worn 1982 P quarter may have passed through thousands of hands. It may have been used during major moments in the early 1980s. It has lived a real life in circulation. And while most will never be worth more than face value, everyone deserves at least a quick inspection. Look closely at the lettering. Check the rims. Examine the surfaces under magnification. Compare the coin's weight and details with known error varieties. Because once in a great while, an ordinary-looking quarter surprises someone. The 1982 Washington quarter with AP mint mark reminds us of an important lesson in collecting. Value is often hidden in small details. Most examples are common. A few are extraordinary. And sometimes, the difference between 25 cents and tens of thousands of dollars is almost invisible to the naked eye. Next, the 1995 Washington Quarter Dollar with AP mint mark. This coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and was released into everyday circulation across the country. The example we're looking at today is not shiny. It is not bright. It is not carefully preserved in a plastic holder. Instead, it is in old, worn, heavily circulated condition. The surfaces are dull. The silver color has faded into a soft gray tone. The high points of the design are smooth from years of use. Small scratches, rim nicks, and contact marks tell the story of a coin that worked hard in the real world. At first glance, most people would not think twice about it. After all, 1995 does not seem that old. Many of us remember the 1990s clearly. These quarters were used in vending machines, laundromats, parking meters, and grocery stores. Millions upon millions were made. So how could one possibly be special? But as always in coin collecting, the story goes deeper. On the front of the coin is the familiar portrait of George Washington. He faces left, with the word Liberty above his head and In God We Trust to the left. The date 1995 appears below. Just to the right of Washington's ponytail is the small P mint mark, showing it was struck in Philadelphia. On a heavily worn example, Washington's hair may look flat and smooth. The cheek and jawline may have lost much of their detail. The rim could show slight flattening from years of contact with other coins. But even in poor condition, the outline of the design usually remains clear and recognizable. The reverse shows the classic eagle design used on quarters before the state series began in 1999. The eagle holds arrows in its claws with olive branches below. United States of America curves along the top, and quarter dollar appears along the bottom. In worn condition, the eagle's chest feathers often blend together, and fine lines in the wings fade away. Still, the bold shape of the bird remains strong. Now here is where things become interesting. The 1995 P quarter had a large mintage. On its own, a worn example is normally worth only face value, 25 cents. Even uncirculated coins from regular mint rolls are usually worth only a small premium. However, collectors do not look at mintage alone. They look for varieties, errors, and condition rarities. In 1995, a known doubled die obverse variety was discovered on some quarters. On these coins, parts of the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, show visible doubling under magnification. It is not extremely dramatic, but it is clear enough to attract attention. Coins with this verified double die variety can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition. There are also off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other mint errors known for mid-1990s quarters. If a 1995 P quarter in poor condition shows a true mint error, something that happened during production, not damage from circulation, the value can increase dramatically. Here is the key point. Heavy wear does not remove a real mint error. A double die is part of the die itself. An off-center strike cannot be erased by time. Even a coin in bad condition can still carry a rare feature. Another factor to consider is high-grade survival. While millions were made, very few were saved in perfect condition. Most entered circulation immediately. As a result, coins that survive in flawless mint state condition, with sharp detail and no contact marks, can bring surprisingly strong prices when professionally graded. But there is something powerful about a worn coin too. An old, heavily circulated 1995 P quarter tells a different story. It may have traveled across several states. It may have been used during major events of the 1990s. It may have passed through thousands of hands before ending up in a jar or drawer. Each scratch and mark is part of its history. Collectors sometimes overlook modern coins because they feel too recent. But time moves quickly. A coin from 1995 is now over 30 years old. Many have been lost, damaged, melted, or worn beyond recognition. Condition becomes scarcer every year. So what should you do if you find a worn 1995 Washington quarter with a P mint mark? First, examine the lettering closely under magnification. Look for signs of doubling. Check the rim for unusual shapes that might suggest an off-center strike. Weigh the coin if possible to confirm it matches the correct standard. Compare it with known examples of errors. Even if it turns out to be a normal circulated quarter worth face value, you have still handled a piece of modern American history. And if by chance it carries a rare double die or striking error, that worn gray coin could be worth far more than 20.5 cents. The lesson is simple. Never judge a coin only by its shine. Sometimes the most ordinary, tired-looking pieces hide the most interesting surprises. And sometimes, even a worn 1995 Washington quarter can remind us that value is not always obvious at first glance. Next, let's step into the world of modern quarters with a 1990 Washington quarter struck at the Denver Mint, easily identified by the small D just below Washington's ponytail. At first glance, it might look like a regular coin, maybe even a little ordinary. But take a closer look and you'll notice something unusual. A soft, reddish tone on the surfaces, giving the coin a warm, almost coppery glow. This color isn't from copper. It's from the natural patina that develops over time when a coin is handled gently or stored carefully. Collectors call this red shading, and it can make even a modern quarter stand out from the millions that pass through pockets and cash registers. The 1990 quarter may seem recent, but it's part of a story about survival and preservation. Unlike coins that were spent immediately, this one avoided heavy circulation. Its edges are mostly intact, the lettering is clear, and the eagle on the reverse still shows fine feather details. In short, it's a quarter that tells a quiet story of careful handling across decades. Look at the obverse. Washington's portrait remains crisp, with Liberty above and In God We Trust to the left. The date 1990 sits neatly below, and that small D mint mark signals Denver production. Coins from Denver often show subtle differences in striking pressure compared to Philadelphia or San Francisco, and in this case, it has helped the coin maintain its sharp features. The reverse shows the traditional eagle design, wings spread, clutching arrows and olive branches. Even in red-shaded condition, the details of the feathers and the shield remain distinguishable. This is a coin that was preserved in a way many modern quarters weren't, not thrown into change jars or rubbed against other coins, but stored where it could age gracefully. So why do collectors care about a 1990 quarter that isn't rare in the conventional sense? It comes down to condition and eye appeal. Most quarters from this year are gray, worn, or dulled by circulation. A coin with even partial red coloring, full details, and minimal marks can be surprisingly valuable. Experts estimate that top-quality examples, especially those with bright red surfaces or vivid red shading, can command prices ranging from $150,000 to $250,000 or more, depending on how strong the color and strike remain. It's a reminder that value isn't just about age or historical significance. Preservation, subtle toning, and rarity within a type can turn an everyday 25-cent coin into a collectible worth several times its face value. This coin also teaches an important lesson for collectors. Don't judge a coin by its year alone. Even recent quarters can be hidden treasures if they've been handled with care. The next time you sort through your change, look for coins with unusual color, sharp details, or signs of careful storage. You might be holding something extraordinary without even knowing it. The 1990 Washington quarter from Denver in red shaded condition may not have centuries of history, but it shows that modern coins can still tell a story. It's a perfect example of how rarity and eye appeal can transform a simple coin into something that captures the imagination of collectors. Next, let's take a closer look at a coin that might seem unremarkable at first glance. A 1991 Washington quarter dollar struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark just below George Washington's ponytail. On the surface, it appears well worn, darkened from decades of handling, and covered with the scratches and nicks that come from everyday use. Many people would probably overlook it in a jar of change or on the counter. Yet, hidden in its age, wear, and patina is a story worth exploring. A story that connects modern coin production, circulation habits, and the surprising value that even ordinary coins can sometimes hold. The first thing to understand is that the 1991 quarter belongs to a long line of Washington quarters. This design has been a mainstay of American coinage since 1932, commemorating the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1991, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for nearly 60 years, with millions produced every year. Unlike some rare or historic coins, a 1991 quarter wasn't initially intended to be a collector's piece. It was meant for everyday transactions, grocery stores, vending machines, and bank rolls. Millions of these quarters were released, and most found their way quickly into pockets and purses. The Denver Mint, marked by the small D under Washington's hair, was one of the primary production facilities. Coins struck there often show subtle differences from those struck at Philadelphia or San Francisco, due to variations in striking pressure and planchet preparation. In 1991, the Mint produced an enormous quantity of quarters, reflecting ongoing demand in the economy. Despite the large production, a few individual coins from that year have survived in unusual condition, or perhaps were forgotten in drawers, jars, and coin rolls, allowing them to gain the attention of modern collectors. Now, let's focus on the coin's condition because that is often the first thing people notice. This particular quarter has clearly seen decades of use. Its surfaces are dark, with the copper-nickel alloy having reacted with environmental factors such as air, moisture, and handling. Small scratches, nicks, and minor dents mark the edges and fields, and the high points of Washington's portrait, the cheek, jawline, and hair, have softened from friction. The eagle on the reverse, with its detailed feathers and strong shield, has also lost some sharpness. These signs of wear categorize the coin as heavily circulated or poor to fair condition in collector terms. For many casual observers, a coin like this might appear worthless, maybe just a quarter. But collectors know better. Even a heavily circulated 1991 Denver quarter has value for several reasons. First, it tells a story of survival. Consider this. Billions of quarters were minted in the late 20th century, yet the reality of circulation is harsh. Coins are jostled in cash registers, rubbed together in pockets, and exposed to moisture and dirt. The fact that this coin remains recognizable, with a date, mint mark, and basic design intact, makes it notable. In coin collecting, survival matters. Even imperfect examples help us understand the flow of money, the wear patterns over decades, and the history of daily life in the United States. Second, rare varieties and errors exist even in modern quarters. While the 1991 Washington quarter was a standard release, a handful of them escaped the mint with unusual features. Some may have doubled dies, where letters or numbers appear slightly doubled under magnification. Others might have minor off-center strikes, weak strikes, or planchet imperfections. These errors weren't intentional, but they create scarcity that collectors prize. Even a circulated coin, if it exhibits such a feature, can command significantly more than face value. Sometimes hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the error's prominence. Let's look at the front of the coin, the obverse, which features George Washington's portrait. Washington faces right, a design by John Flanagan introduced in 1932. Above his head is the familiar word liberty, and the phrase "I in God we trust" appears to the left. Below, the date 1991 sits prominently, with a tiny D mint mark directly beneath his ponytail. Even with wear, these elements are still readable, allowing collectors to verify the coin's authenticity and production. The high points of Washington's hair and cheek have softened, yes, but the overall portrait remains recognizable, a testament to both the coin's design and the durability of the minting process. On the reverse we see the traditional eagle design, wings spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch. This design symbolizes strength, readiness and peace, key American values. Despite the coin's age and circulation, many of the reverse details remain visible. The eagle's feathers, shield and letters, though softened, still convey the artistry of the original die. This is an important point for collectors. Even heavily worn coins can be appreciated for their design elements, historical significance and craftsmanship. Now let's talk about why this coin could have surprisingly high value. A 1991 Denver quarter in worn condition is generally not rare by itself. However, a few circumstances can elevate its worth. Coins that were stored carefully for years, then rediscovered, can attract interest if they show subtle qualities, like partial mint luster, unusual toning, or even light red and golden shades. These features suggest the coin survived relatively protected from heavy circulation and harsh environmental factors. When experts evaluate such coins, they consider strike quality, eye appeal, originality, and any minor errors. For example, certain 1990s quarters with red shading, the faint coppery tones that remain from the minting process, can be highly sought after. Though this 1991 Denver quarter is heavily circulated, there are instances where coins from this period have sold for $75,000 to $120,000 depending on eye appeal and rarity factors. Coins with unique color patterns, slight die doubling, or other minor anomalies can push the value even higher. It's a reminder that condition alone doesn't always define value. Subtle uniqueness and survival tell a bigger story. Interestingly, collectors of modern quarters often enjoy these coins because they combine accessibility with discovery. Unlike rare 19th century coins, 1990s quarters are familiar to many people, yet some have escaped notice for decades. A coin tucked away in a change jar, drawer, or coin folder may suddenly reveal its hidden qualities to someone who knows what to look for. It's part detective work, part history lesson, and part treasure hunt, all in one small coin. Let's explore the production context a little more. The 1991 Denver Mint quarters were part of the regular circulation strike program. At this time, the U.S. Mint was using high-speed presses to meet growing demand. Millions of quarters were struck every day. Under such conditions, slight variations can occur. Small die cracks, minor doubling, planchet imperfections, and occasional off-center strikes. These subtle quirks were often unnoticed when the coins entered circulation, but for today's collectors, they can be a defining factor in a coin's value. Another element to consider is historical significance. While 1991 may not feel historic compared to 1930s wheat pennies or Lincoln cents, it still represents an era in American economic and social life. These quarters were in the hands of ordinary people, shopping, commuting, and going about their daily lives. Each scratch, ding, and discoloration tells a story of circulation, of being exchanged and touched by countless Americans. This human element adds intangible value that collectors appreciate, a connection to everyday history captured in metal. Even in dirty or darkened condition, a 1991 Denver quarter can provide clues to its journey. Collectors often examine the surfaces for patterns of wear, signs of cleaning, or natural toning. Dirt embedded in recessed areas, when left untouched, can actually confirm a coin's authenticity and history. Excessive cleaning, by contrast, can reduce collector value. This makes careful handling and observation essential when evaluating coins from this era. So how do collectors approach a coin like this today? First, careful cleaning is never recommended. The goal is to preserve originality. Second, examination with magnification allows subtle details to be seen. The edges of letters, faint die doubling, the texture of Washington's hair, and the eagle's feathers. Third, weight and diameter can confirm proper production, especially for those interested in identifying minor planchet anomalies. Finally, provenance, knowing where the coin came from, can sometimes add context, especially for coins that have been stored in rolls, folders, or long-neglected collections. Now, let's put this in perspective for potential value. While a typical circulated 1991 Denver quarter might only be worth face value or a few dollars to casual collectors, those with unusual features can attract significant attention. Coins with partial red toning, die doubling, or rare circulation patterns have been documented to sell for $80,000 to $135,000 in extreme cases. The high end of these sales reflects rarity, collector interest, and the desirability of modern coins in exceptional condition or with unique characteristics. Even dirty, circulated examples may contain hidden value if they exhibit traits that experts recognize. This coin also teaches an important lesson for coin collectors of all levels. First, never dismiss coins just because they look ordinary. Many hidden treasures lie in jars, drawers, and old coin rolls. Second, modern coins can surprise collectors. Even quarters from the 1990s, a period many consider common, can have varieties and survival characteristics that make them highly desirable. Third, patience, knowledge, and attention to detail are more important than initial appearance. The 1991 Washington Quarter with a Denver Mint mark in heavily circulated condition reminds us of these truths. On the surface it's ordinary, worn, dark, scratched, and possibly dirty. But with a closer look, it connects us to the minting process, the era of its circulation, and the chance that a small, unassuming coin might hold extraordinary value. Its story is both historical and personal, linking generations of Americans through a small piece of metal. In conclusion, this 1991 Denver Quarter demonstrates the excitement of coin collecting. History, rarity, and discovery all wrapped into one. Whether it remains in a jar of loose change or is professionally examined, it has the potential to surprise, to teach, and in rare cases to reward collectors handsomely. It's a reminder that even modern coins, worn and overlooked, can be treasures in disguise. So next time you encounter an old quarter, especially one with a mint mark and a story to tell, take a closer look. Even in dirty, heavily circulated condition, it might be hiding a secret worth thousands of dollars, or more. After all, coin collecting isn't just about age or metal. It's about history, rarity, and the thrill of discovering something extraordinary in the most ordinary places. Next up, we're looking at a coin that might seem ordinary at first, but it actually has a story to tell. The 1971 Washington Quarter Dollar with a D mint mark found today in fine condition. Now, when we say fine condition, we don't mean perfect or uncirculated. This coin has been used, it has small scratches, a little wear on the high points, but overall, it's in great shape considering it's over 50 years old. The D mint mark tells us it was made at the Denver Mint, one of the main mints in the United States. Back in 1971, the U.S. Mint was producing Washington quarters for everyday use. These coins were meant to be spent in stores, vending machines, and for pocket change. Millions were made that year, but not all of them survived in good condition. That's what makes a fine condition example interesting to collectors. On the front of the coin you'll see the familiar portrait of George Washington looking to the right. Above his head is the word liberty, and to the left, the motto "I in God we trust" appears. The date 1971 is on the right, with a tiny D mint mark right below Washington's ponytail. Even in fine condition, the details of Washington's hair, face, and shoulders are clear, though slightly worn from decades of handling. The reverse of the coin shows the American eagle wings spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch. Above the eagle you'll see United States of America, and below, quarter dollar. This classic design symbolizes strength, peace, and readiness, just like it did when the coin was first released. On a fine condition coin, most of the eagle's feathers are visible, though some detail on the high points may be a little flattened. Now let's talk about why this coin matters to collectors. At first glance, a 1971 quarter might seem common. And yes, millions were made. But coins that survive in fine or better condition can be rare, especially when they've been handled carefully over decades. People spent most of these coins, tossed them in jars, or just let them sit in drawers. That means a coin that still looks clean and strong is special. Even though it's a modern coin, it can still have value beyond face value. A 1971 Washington quarter in fine condition might not sell for thousands like rarer coins, but it can still be worth a few dollars to collectors who are building sets. Why? Because collectors want coins that represent the history and circulation of money. Each quarter tells a story about where it was made, who used it, and how it survived. Sometimes coins from 1971 also have small errors or varieties. A coin might be slightly off-center, or it might have a tiny doubling in the letters or numbers. These mistakes are rare and can make even a common coin like a 1971 quarter more valuable. That's why collectors never dismiss a coin just because it looks ordinary. Even a quarter in fine condition could hide something special if you look closely. Another thing to know is that the metal composition of this coin is different from older quarters. Before 1965, quarters were made mostly of silver. By 1971 they were made from copper nickel, which made them more durable for everyday use but also less valuable for their metal content. That's why the coin's worth comes from condition, rarity, and collector interest, not silver content. Handling a fine condition 1971 quarter is a little like holding history in your hand. You can see the signs of use, but the coin has survived over half a century. It reminds us that coins weren't just objects, they were part of daily life. Every scratch, nick, and worn edge tells a story of decades spent in circulation. For collectors, coins like this are often added to date and mint sets. A set might include quarters from each year, each mint, in different conditions. A fine condition 1971 D quarter fills a gap perfectly. It represents the Denver Mint that year and helps complete the historical record of Washington quarters. Even if you aren't a collector, it's fun to think about. Imagine finding a 1971 quarter in a jar of change, brushing off the dirt, and realizing it's still in good shape. You could hold a piece of 50-year-old history that has traveled through countless pockets, wallets, and cash registers. That's the magic of coin collecting. Even ordinary coins can have a story. And here's a tip for collectors. Always look closely at the edges, letters, and numbers. Even coins that look fine can hide small errors or subtle details that increase their value. Use a magnifying glass if you can. A little inspection can reveal doubling, slight die cracks, or other features that make a coin stand out. Finally, remember that coins like this are more than money, they're time capsules. The 1971 Washington Quarter D in fine condition is a snapshot of early 1970s America. It was in circulation during a time of change, the end of the Vietnam War, the rise of new technology, and shifts in everyday life. Holding this coin is like holding a little piece of that past. So, the next time you see a quarter from the 1970s, don't just toss it in the jar. Look at the date, check the mint mark, and notice its condition. Even coins that seem ordinary can tell stories, connect you to history, and sometimes even hold value for collectors. The 1971 Washington Quarter D in fine condition is a perfect example of that. It's a coin that survived decades of use, traveled through countless hands, and still tells its story clearly. For collectors and casual enthusiasts alike, it's a reminder that history is all around us, even in something as small as a quarter. And now we come to the final coin of today's video, the 1976 Bicentennial Quarter with a D mint mark. This is a coin almost every American has seen at some point. In extra fine condition, it shows light wear, clear details, and a look that tells a story of careful handling over the years. It may seem like just another piece of pocket change, but as a final example, it perfectly demonstrates how even familiar coins can carry surprising value, history, and meaning. This quarter was struck during one of the most memorable years in American history. In 1976, the United States celebrated its 200th anniversary, a milestone that inspired nationwide pride and reflection. Across towns and cities, there were parades, fireworks, speeches, and community events. Families came together to honor the country's journey from its founding to the modern era. The U.S. Mint wanted to be part of that celebration by redesigning the backs of coins in circulation, including the quarter, to capture the spirit of the bicentennial. The nation was also dealing with economic challenges at the time. Inflation was high, metal prices were rising, and coins were moving through circulation faster than ever. The mint had to balance producing special commemorative designs while keeping enough coins available for everyday use. That meant production was focused on speed and quantity, not perfection. Many coins were struck quickly, which sometimes led to weak detail, slight surface flaws, or minor imperfections. The Denver Mint produced a massive number of bicentennial quarters, all carrying the D mint mark on the front. Instead of a single year, these coins bear the dual date 1776 to 1976, highlighting both the nation's founding and its 200th anniversary. Most of these quarters went straight into circulation, passing through countless hands over the years. Even coins that were saved as souvenirs often show some signs of handling or age. The front of the coin features George Washington, a design Americans have known for decades. In extra fine condition, Washington's hairlines, facial details, and lettering remain clear, even if the highest points show light wear. This level of preservation tells us that the coin circulated but was treated carefully. It survived everyday use while still retaining much of its original charm. The reverse of the coin is what makes the bicentennial quarter truly stand out. Instead of the usual eagle, it features a colonial drummer with a torch, surrounded by stars. This design reflects the courage, dedication, and spirit of the American Revolution. The details are intricate, requiring a strong strike to fully show the drumsticks, torch, and stars. On many circulated coins, these details are softened or partially worn, but in extra fine condition, they still pop, giving the coin visual appeal that draws collectors in. Because so many bicentennial quarters were minted, most examples are very common. Even today you can find them in old coin collections, jars of change, or rolls tucked away from decades past. In average condition, they usually carry only a modest premium over face value. That's why many casual collectors overlook them, assuming they're not worth much. However, extra fine examples tell a different story. Coins in this condition still show sharp design details, attractive surfaces, and strong overall eye appeal. They represent a smaller group of survivors that avoided years of heavy wear, making them appealing to collectors who appreciate history and preservation. Beyond condition, minting errors are what can really elevate a bicentennial quarter. During the busy production of 1976, mistakes sometimes happened. Some coins were struck off-center, others show doubled lettering or design features, and a few were even struck on the wrong metal planchet, giving them unusual weight or color. These coins were never intended to exist, which makes them incredibly intriguing to collectors. Error coins are particularly prized because they tell a story about the mint during a hectic, historic year. A bold error combines history, rarity, and visual interest all in one piece. Auction results show how valuable these coins can become. Major error examples of the 1976 D Bicentennial Quarter have sold for $65,000 or more, depending on the type and visibility of the mistake. The clearer the error, the more intense the competition among collectors. Even standard coins in top condition can surprise collectors. One exceptionally preserved 1976 D Bicentennial Quarter sold for over $215,000 at auction. Its sharp strike, clean surfaces, and outstanding eye appeal made it a rare standout from a coin that was produced in massive numbers. Experts believe that if a flawless MS-70 example were ever discovered and certified, it could reach $280,000 or more. For a coin that was meant for circulation and produced in such high volume, a perfect survivor would be almost unbelievable. Many collectors believe one may still be hidden away in a long-forgotten roll, an old album, or a keepsake box. So why does this coin matter so much today? It's not just about metal or size. It represents history, national pride, and a unique moment when the country paused to reflect on its beginnings. When rarity, condition, and historical significance come together, collectors notice, and that's what makes the Bicentennial Quarter so fascinating. The lesson here is simple but important. Never assume a coin is ordinary just because it was widely produced. Even a coin that looks worn can hold surprises. Exceptional condition, rare errors, or unusual features can transform an everyday quarter into a piece of history worth thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, of dollars. A valuable 1976 Bicentennial Quarter could still be out there today. Maybe it's sitting in a keepsake box alongside old Bicentennial items, tucked in a drawer, or mixed into a roll of coins that hasn't been opened in decades. Taking the time to examine it closely could uncover a piece of American history far more exciting than expected. And with that, we wrap up today's coin journey. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed exploring these Bicentennial coins, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and tell me which coins you'd like to see featured next. Remember, even the change in your pocket might hold a story waiting to be discovered.